Hey everyone, next episode of Street Sharks. Satellite Sharks. Alright. Like, a satellite is part of the plot. It's not the main focus of the plot. I think they really could have come up with a better title than Satellite Sharks. But it does tie into a theory I have about this episode, and I'll get into that later. Let's see, this episode starts off with the sharks are staking out outside this government research lab out in the desert. Let's see, Benz has gotten like some information about Paradigm wants to invade it or something. Okay. The whole opening is really confusing. There's a big fight scene. Killamar and Reptile come in with their own vehicles that they have now. Alright. The sharks attack them, and there's a whole bunch of weirdness. There's animation problems, there's like characters talking and the wrong voice comes out. Like, there's a part where Slamu leans out of his jet, he holds down this thing and he goes, "Fin check," in Streaks' voice. Also, Streaks suddenly pops up next to him out of nowhere. Streaks wasn't there before, and it's just a mess, that whole opening scene. And also, to make it even harder to watch, the whole thing is really grainy. There's like a layer of grain over the entire screen the whole time. And like last episode, I'm wondering, does it mean that the original version of the episode was lost and they had to use a lower quality transfer of the episode? Once the Blu-ray comes out, I'll have to go back and watch these episodes again, because I'm really curious why do they look like this when all the other episodes look like typical DVD quality? So anyway, the sharks, they fight off Reptile and Calamari. The people in the government lab congratulate the sharks, give them a hand, and blah blah blah. And yeah, it's really weird. So let's see. After that, the sharks are talking with Benz about. Oh, now I remember. The President Horn, had told them about this invasion of the government thing or whatever. So anyway, after that, they go to celebrate by eating some Humongo burgers. And let's see, apparently they have their own little base in the desert now. Would have been a nice thing to have an episode explaining, but whatever. Let's see, Benz has made this kind of dumbwaiter elevator thing that will bring them a tray of hamburgers straight from the Humongo burger. Okay. So anyway, they're eating their Humongo burgers and talking about... Oh yeah, they turn on the TV, and there's an ad for a circus is coming. I can't remember what it's called, but Benz is like, "Hey, you know, I used to work at that circus." And the others are like, "Hey, cool, can you get us tickets?" And he's like, "I can do you one better." And then it shows they're at the circus, they're watching a rehearsal performance. Oh, that's cool. It's nice to see, like, them just hanging out, doing normal stuff. So anyway, they see this performer, El Sordo. Real creative name. El Sordo is a performer who mainly uses a sword, although he also does acrobatics, apparently. Let's see, he does some acrobatics, and then they bring in this tank with a huge swordfish. And oddly, they never call it swordfish. I think they always just call it marlin. Huh. Whatever. Anyway, he jumps in with the swordfish, and, like, they do a little sword fight with the fish's nose and the sword, and that's kind of a cool bit. And then, like, it looks like he's in danger, and then he jumps up, and the announcer goes, "I said, just kidding, folks, they're the best of friends." And then Benz takes the sharks backstage to meet with El Sordo. El Sordo shows them a tank with the marlin, swordfish, whatever, and he's like, "He's my best friend. If only there was a way that I could communicate with him. I would love to find a way to communicate with him. Someday I will." That's not foreshadowing or anything. Yeah, it's really obvious foreshadowing, but considering the pace of the episode, it's fine. It gets the point across very quickly, and it's not too awkward. So then we see Paradigm has been spying on them this whole time. He sees, oh yeah, Spike, that's the name of the swordfish. It's not really worth remembering since we'll get to it when we get to it. Paradigm's like, "I must have that marlin," or does he say swordfish? I don't think he does, whatever. And he's like, his whole reasoning is, because it's so well trained, once he mutates it, it'll be one of the most intelligent Ceviots he has as an ally. As opposed to, let's see, Reptile was like just some guy, and Yeah, not the smartest guy. And Calamari was like just a random squid they found. Here, they have a trained animal that understands English to an extent. So anyway, he sends Calamari and Reptile to kidnap it, and they do, immediately. That was fast. Like, I paused it so I could take my notes, and then I unpause it, and then it's there, and I'm like, wait, what just... And I rewound it. Oh, okay, so, like, pretty much immediately as Paradigm is telling Calamari and Reptile to go kidnap Spike, they go, they're immediately there, and then they're immediately back at Paradigm's lab. Alright. So anyway, let's see. Oh yeah, there's a weird bit. Paradigm asks Calamari, did he let you give you a DNA sample? And then Calamari turns around and suddenly he has a cast on one of his arms. Or it's all bandaged up, something. The implication is that the swordfish stabbed him in the arm. And he's like, let me, he nearly tore my arm off. And I rewound it again, and I was watching, when Calamari and Reptile come in with Spike, he doesn't have the bandage on his arm. But now he does have the bandage on his arm, so did they cut a scene of him trying to get the DNA sample from Spike? I don't know. There's a lot of weird, like, it feels like there's missing scenes, and I'll get to that at the end of the video. So anyway, let's see. He gives Paradigm the thing. Paradigm creates the loyalty vaccine, serum, whatever, and injects it into Spike. So now Spike will listen to anything he says. He gives Spike some stuff, and he opens this tunnel in his tank, even though this is the tank from the circus, whatever. And he says, okay, I want you to go into that government lab and plant this thingy on their computers. And the fish is like, okay, and then zip, it goes through the thing. And then, oh yeah, just then, the sharks, Benz, and El Sordo, they're down at the circus. They come back to the fish tank. Well, there's no fish tank there anymore. They see Spike is gone. And then Benz looks around and he finds Calamari's shed scales on the ground. Ew. Like, it's really he holds up, like, it looks like a rag. Ugh, that is nasty. Anyway, it's Calamari's, so they track them down back to the desert. El Sordo falls down this trapdoor that Paradigm had set up, for some reason. Maybe it was to catch animals, so that he could mutate them, who knows. So anyway, he has El Sordo there, and he tosses him in the tank with Spike, and El Sordo's like, Spike! And then Spike, vroom, and tries to kill him. He's like, what's going on? And so then he's trying to dodge El Sordo, and while he's doing that, the sharks fall down the trapdoor too, along with Benz. They try to free El Sordo and Spike. Jab sets off this, or one of the sharks, they set off this laser thing. It zaps El Sordo and Spike's tank. And then, let's see, Paradigm, and I'm assuming the other Cviets, get in this little getaway vehicle with big white puffy wheels. I'm wondering if that's some kind of desert vehicle or something. Is that like an actual thing? Whatever, anyway. They drive off. They're left with El Sordo. They go down to check on him, and they see he's fused with Spike. And now he has all of Spike's memories. El Sordo and Spike are now the same person. It's really weird. It's a unique way to mutate him. It's more than just, he injects somebody with mutant DNA, or he mutates an animal. This time it's a human and an animal fusing together. And because they know each other, they can work, he's able to gain control of the body very quickly because he already knows the animal, I guess. I don't know, it's an interesting idea. So anyway, you'd think that was the end. Like, oh, they reveal this guy is mutated into a swordfish, but then the episode keeps going. Alright, so then, let's see, now that he has Spike's memories, he can tell the sharks what Paradigm had sent Spike to do. Spike had gone to the research lab and planted something on the computer, but then they realize Paradigm left a bomb behind, so they have to evacuate the lab before it blows up. It blows up. They get out of there, and then they track down Paradigm. But before that, we see Paradigm talking to Calamari and Reptile about what he planted on the computers in the research lab. It was something he could use to erase the computer memory, and also give him um, somehow give him control over government satellites. And there's where the title comes from, Satellite Sharks. Nearly at the end of the episode, we finally get the idea of what the title means. Anyway, the Sharks and El Sordo break in, and they try to stop whatever his plan is, because they don't know. So anyway, they wreck his equipment, and the lab explodes. Again. So then the Sharks celebrate by going to the circus, and they watch the newly mutated El Sordo perform a new act, taking his mutation into, making use of that. It hasn't really hindered him from performing. The end. Alright. The episode was good. I liked it. There was a lot of good stuff in it. However, there were a lot of flaws in it. Mainly, I think the first battle scene probably should have been just completely cut out and have it explained with like 1 or 2 lines of dialogue, and then that way more focus could go to El Sordo and Spike. And also maybe fill out some of the other spaces where it seems like stuff got cut. Now, what I think about this episode is I think it was probably originally 2 parts, or at least 2 consecutive episodes. Like, the first one would have focused on El Sordo, the human, fusing with Spike, and then the second episode is the Sharks going to stop Paradigm. And so I think, like, the second episode is probably where the title Satellite Sharks came from. The end of the first one would reveal Paradigm's plan, what he wanted with the research center, why he wanted to take over satellites and this and that, and also mutate Sordo. And then the second episode is the Sharks and Sordo teaming up to go take out Paradigm and stop his new plan. And I'm convinced this is what happened because it is such a choppy episode. There is so much weird about it. There's the scene where Killamari is in the lab, and then suddenly his arm is bandaged up, and there was like nothing in between, and it couldn't have just been an animation error, because he walks in with Reptile, you see his arm, you see him leaning against the tank with his arm, like, fine, and then it's bandaged up, like in the immediate next scene, and it stays bandaged throughout the rest of the episode. I didn't see any errors where they forgot to bandage his arm up. So it seems really weird that they would mess up there and nowhere else. So I'm convinced that they cut out a scene where he's trying to, like, I don't know, get the DNA from Spike, and it, like, pokes his arm or whatever. And then there's another scene at the end, again with Killamari, where, let's see, Killamari and Reptile are fighting with the Sharks, and Reptile is shooting lasers. Ripster picks up Killamari to use him as a shield, and then it cuts away. It really feels like Reptile was supposed to, like, accidentally zap Killamari, but we don't see it. They cut it out for whatever reason. I don't know if it was for time. Maybe thought it was too violent or something. Also, I think there probably was more stuff with El Sordo, the human, because he has a unique design, he has a good voice, that completely changes once he's mutated, and we're never going to see it again in the series. So it seems kind of odd that they would put a lot of effort into his human design and then not use it. So whatever, anyway, back to the... Oh, and that's the other thing with El Sordo. We don't get a whole lot of time with him as a human or a mutant. Once he's mutated, he, like, immediately understands what his deal is. He immediately helps the Sharks. There's not really all that much... And he, like, acclimates to his new mutation perfectly by the end of the episode. He's already performing back at the circus. The circus apparently accepts him the way he is. So there's, like, no conflict there. Although this is Street Sharks, like, pretty far late in the show, Street Sharks, so, like, pathos over being mutated isn't really a focus at this point. But still, I think there probably could have been something here, so that really leads me to think that this was a 2-parter that they cut into 2. And, so anyway, it was a good episode. It's just very strange that there's all this stuff with it. Anyway, I like El Sordo's look. He has a cool look that makes him really unique from the Sharks. However, he also does look a lot like the Sharks. I think it was probably partly due to, like, he had to look like the Sharks because he probably was planned to have a toy. I don't know if he actually got a toy or not. If he did, I've never seen it. Or maybe I have and I've forgotten. I don't know. Anyway, he has, like, a red mask on, which is kind of a cool thing that we don't see at all. Like, it would have been nice if when he was a performer in the circus, he has the red mask on, and then he gets it back when he mutates. or if maybe Spike had the mask on, who knows. Um, so yeah, that just kind of comes out of nowhere. Um, don't really know what to say about him. Paradigm's new plan was actually pretty good, especially considering how late in the show this is. Paradigm's plans have gotten goofier and goofier, but this one actually made some sense and was a pretty well executed plan. And he actually did win. He managed to erase the government computers and take over satellites. Whether or not he retained control over the satellites when both of his labs were blown up, I don't know. But cool, he got a little bit of a victory, which is one of the things I really like about Street Sharks, is that the villains get just as many victories as or well, not as many, but they get a good chunk of victories for themselves, something not really seen in many kids' cartoons. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in this one, a lot of good stuff to look forward to in the upcoming episodes. And one of the things I was really thinking about when I was watching this was how much it reminds me of how Gargoyles went. Like Gargoyles, Street Sharks had like a really cool opening, and then like the following season was filled with stuff that was like all revolving around mostly the opening and like one story. But then when they got another season, they started to expand more because they thought they were going to be going on for a while. And also, like Gargoyles, Street Sharks was canceled, and a lot of that never went anywhere. However, with Gargoyles, it works a little bit better because it was just a better quality show than Street Sharks was. Um, anyway, Street Sharks is really interesting that we are getting all these, like, there's allies, there's enemies, there's concepts, and none of it's going to pay off at all by the end of the show, and it's really unfortunate because there's a lot of potential for really cool stories here. I can imagine if Street Sharks could have continued, like, with this kind of creative team, the one who's there at this moment in the show, instead of what we get in the end of the show, I think it could have gone on for years and become something like Ninja Turtles, where people look back on it fondly and still like it today. I mean, people do like Street Sharks, but I don't think many of them actually watched the show. I think a lot of people just like the Street Sharks because of how absurd they are. They didn't actually watch much of the show. Anyway, I don't want to ramble, so that's all for this one. See ya.